All right. Hey, good evening, folks. Once again, we are back taking a look at the tropics. Tonight is Thursday, September 5th, 2024. This is your evening tropical update, where tonight we are looking at an Atlantic basin full of stuff. We're not really sure if anything's actually a tropical system, but Hurricane Center's kind of gone crazy with the crayons over the last day or two. We have 5 marked areas of interest on the map. We'll show you all 5 of them and what's going on with each of them, if there's any threats, and then what to look out for as we get a little deeper into the rest of the season. So, Hurricane Center's evening outlook should be up to the evening one by now. Yeah, so okay, so they've moved this around a little bit, but generally about the same thing. So, tonight we are looking at 5 areas of interest across the Atlantic Basin, 2 of them in the Gulf of Mexico. We have Invest 90L near the coast of Texas. We have another tropical wave that we've been watching for some time moving into the southern Gulf of Mexico. We have an area of interest off the coast of the eastern U.S. dubbed 99L. We have another wave here that no longer seems like it's going to develop. And then we have another wave way back between Africa and the Antilles. And then we're also going to talk about something else about to leave Africa in a couple of days. So let's go ahead and go to the satellite presentation in the Gulf of Mexico on Tropical Tidbits, showing you 2 of our 5 players. We have Invest 90L again near the coast of Texas, and then this tropical wave moving into the Western Caribbean and across Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. What we're going to have happen here is this. We have a stationary frontal boundary sitting across the Gulf of Mexico. We have super warm tropical air all around it to the south, even really to the north. The boundary is a little bit further north than that. But a lot of tropical moisture in this region. And on the tail end of the front, we have a low pressure system that's spun up on the surface. Now, this is very common when you have divergence aloft over a stationary boundary. You often get cyclogenesis, very common thing to see in weather, where a little low pressure spins up on the tail end of a front. No surprise there, but not really tropical in nature. There's a lot of dry air, dry, cool air wrapping around into this through parts of Texas. So we're not seeing a lot of tropical development right now. This is still being helped by baroclinic processes. Over time, if this were to remain over water and say move slowly, it may begin to develop like kind of tropical based thunderstorms, and it may become more tropical in nature with more of a warm core structure instead of a cold core structure. But right now, it doesn't look like it's going to have enough time because there's a big fall cold front coming in, and this front is going to start forcing this low to move off to the northeast. This will bring heavy rain to parts of Louisiana and the Mississippi and Alabama coastlines, and then across the southeast over the next couple of days as this kind of rides along the front. Now, some of this energy is going to work back to the south. We're going to see a piece of that energy go away, and another piece of that energy kind of cut down. And then that next cold front over the weekend is going to squish all this tropical moisture back down into the kind of southern half of the Gulf of Mexico. As that happens, we're going to see this wave move into that region. Now, this wave is the one we were watching way back around Labor Day when I was kind of joking about how I didn't bring my recording stuff, and then the stuff was going on. This was the wave that everybody doomcasted being like a Category 4 hurricane into Mississippi or Louisiana or something. This is what it actually is. It's just a little wave. It never turned into anything. It just kind of silently ran across the Gulf of the Caribbean, rather, and now it's going to move into the Gulf of Mexico, where it's going to have that same tropical juice get shoved back down, and there is some chance that over part of the western part of the Gulf or the Bay of Campeche, this may be able to form up next week. Hurricane Center has about a 20% chance of that happening, and some of our computer models you can see here are indicating the threat of some kind of low pressure spinning up in the Western Gulf, both GFS and Euro showing that. Euro actually a little bit stronger, and then that moves up maybe towards the end or middle of next week, and it looks like, maybe another rainfall threat for Texas, but I would be very surprised if anything particularly strong came out of this, and that cold front will keep that pinned down there until at least the middle of next week. So right now, this low here, just mostly a rainfall threat. Very, very unlikely that it's going to be able to become a tropical storm or depression before it moves on land, and then this wave, as it festers down there next week, could be an issue. Those are the 2 ones that are the closest and most likely to impact the U.S. These next 3, we're going to go through them quick. This is a tropical wave way out in the off the east coast, off the coast of the Outer Banks, maybe 800 to 1,000 miles off the shore. Naked swirl right here, all the associated thunderstorm activity, heavily sheared. In a lot of years, this would be a pretty easy slam dunk subtropical storm, and we would get a name off the list just from that. But this year, just a lot of shear and chaos and just not really able to form. So Hurricane Center tonight has a very low chance on this one, just 30% before it moves over colder water. But again, some subtropical characteristics could be acquired if this storm is able to do so. But again, it doesn't look like it. So overall, I'm not too worried about it. We go over to the central Atlantic where we have the water vapor satellite imagery to kind of illustrate what's going on here. This is that 0% wave, and it looks unlikely to develop now. There's a big upper tropospheric trough right here that's shearing the storm to a hefty degree, and this isn't really a very healthy wave to begin with, and there's dry air lurking in the area. With all those things in mind, the Hurricane Center has put this down to 0% as it slowly moves towards the Bahamas and the Antilles over the next couple of days. May produce some moisture and some more rainfall, but this one, when they go 0% like this, when you look at this map and you see a 0 where there's no threat area outlined, that means it's going to go off the map by tomorrow morning. So our last area is this little broad area right here, 10% chance, elongated area of low pressure. We can see it on the satellite presentation again on Tropical Tidbits, showing it a little bit off to the west of Africa and just kind of a part of the monsoon trough. You know, we've seen this a couple times. These kind of monsoon trough areas are just sort of spinning up and trying to get going. But it's kind of wishful thinking because we don't typically get a lot of storms out of stuff like this, and there's a good reason why. So 10% chance, very unlikely, and if it does, it's probably going to pull north eventually as the Bermuda Azores high shifts around. Very unlikely to be any threat to the U.S. So with that in mind, that kind of speed runs us through all the main players. I would say that the African coast is something to watch, though, next week. As we work into the middle of September, we're going to see the MJO index come back into a more favorable phase. And I think that as we begin to transition seasons, we might get a little more instability out in the tropics. So I know that it's been very common for us to go, oh, just wait 2 weeks and then we'll have all these hurricanes. But the GFS here does indicate that this next wave coming off of Africa is going to be fairly healthy, a much more healthy African wave axis than we've seen with a lot of this other junk and slop that's come off of Africa. This wave looks remotely healthy and has a nice little moisture pocket following it. A lot of these waves have not had that. If they've even gotten off Africa at all, they've been immediately inundated by this dry air. But you can see this system here, stamped at 1,009 millibars, has a nice little like cocoon of moisture with it. And this is all going to move off to the west. And this is probably our last shot for our really clean, like significant MDR type storm. The GFS, for what it's worth, is spinning this up into a hurricane before it gets to the Antilles. Not sure if that's actually going to play out or not. Way too early to make that call, but just showing that there's a better chance of something like that happening as we work through next week. Now, this would be September 15th. This would be 10 days from now. It wouldn't even be near the Antilles, so it would be another 5 to 7 days before any potential U.S. impact. So nothing to worry about right now, but just showing that we may have one actual storm out there at least by sometime later next week. We'll wrap up tonight with a look real quick at Super Typhoon Yagi. This is a Category 4, almost Category 5, maximum sustained winds of 155 miles per hour tonight. Massive typhoon in the near, I think, South China Sea, very near the island of Hanai, I believe. This one's going to move on land here by tomorrow and still be very powerful when it makes landfall. We can see here over on iCyclone's page, Josh Morgan, Storm Chaser. He was talking about on his Facebook page and showing you the radar imagery, showing a really interesting dual eye wall structure, inner eye wall right here, and then a bit of a moat feature, and then an outer eye wall ring. And sometimes these Westpac storms are able to have that concentric eye wall feature and then just move along with basically 2 eye walls. It's really impressive sometimes. So a lot of times Atlantic hurricanes, this would be signaling an eye wall replacement cycle. But if you look on the infrared satellite, there really isn't much contracting of the eye. There's a little bit, like if you squint, but it doesn't seem to be in a hurry. So while there is potentially an eye wall replacement cycle maybe about to start, which could indicate some weakening, it looks like that's going to be slow, if at all. And Joint Typhoon Warning Center has this landfalling as would be a major hurricane on our scale. Super typhoon right now, 115 just before landfall would not be a super typhoon. But JTWC often under forecast these things. So if this came in at Category 4, super typhoon intensity, would not be surprised. A lot of people live here, and that's going to be a really bad strike for them, and then it'll weaken and still be a typhoon, though, as it moves into Vietnam and makes landfall for the last time over towards the weekend. So big storms in the Western Pacific. Oftentimes that means the Atlantic Basin doesn't have a whole lot going on, and the models do indicate the next about 7 to 14 days are still going to be very active in the Western Pacific. We could have more storms to talk about on our hands, so we don't want to get too complacent over here. And then after that, the Atlantic Basin should be kind of arising from its slumber. Maybe. Hasn't so far yet, but it very well could down the line. So that's what I got for you guys tonight on your topical update. Again, both these systems in the Gulf, the best chance for any U.S. impacts in the next, 5 to 7 days would be something coming out of the western Gulf of Mexico, Bay of Campeche, maybe moving into Texas, mostly likely a rainmaker if it's anything. The wave out here, not likely to develop. This one is moving away, and then this one also probably not likely to develop. And our next big wave is the one just now entering your screen. This will move offshore over the weekend and early next week, and we could have a long track storm to talk about after that. So that's all I got for you guys tonight. We'll have more updates on the page throughout the weekend and beyond. We'll be tracking as they come. So until then, stay safe. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.